Welcome, everyone, to our Spring 2022 celebration of Mission Possible. We thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Joanna Marroquin. I am the manager for the Center for Community Dialogue and Training, which is a program of Our Family Services. We have a great lineup for you here today. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce myself and how we come together. I am here as a social worker in this managing role. I've been with Our Family since 2019, and the wonderful piece that really drew me to Our Family Services was the work that we were doing in community to really make an impact in regard to empowerment and recognition. We have a really great lineup here for you today. You'll have the opportunity to hear from Our Family's board chair, Geneva Escobedo. You'll also have the opportunity to hear from our new CEO, Jamie Snyder. In addition to that, you'll be hearing from our wonderful keynote speakers for the day, Jasmine Chan and Vanna D. Lewis, and the amazing work that they're doing in community and how they feel the IDEA work is important to carry forward. And in addition to that, you'll also have the opportunity to hear from our Center for Community Dialogue and Training's staff. We thank you so much for being here. We're excited for a wonderful event, so let's get started. So please welcome Our Family's board chair, Geneva Escobedo. Geneva?
Hello, I'm Geneva Escobedo, and I am the current chair of the board for Our Family Services. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share with you my experiences on the board and why I have dedicated the last 7 years to serving Our Family Services on the board. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a native Arizonan. I was born in the cotton farming community of Safford, Arizona. I am the eldest of 5, the only girl. Had a blast with my rambunctious 4 brothers. I had a very long and exciting career in higher education, 30 years, and the last 17 years of that career was at Pima Community College here in Tucson. So I'm very grateful for all of the positions and the experiences I gained while working in higher education. Before I retired, I was recruited to be a board member. And I didn't have to think long and hard. I knew that I wanted to serve the community and specifically homeless families. I have 2 cousins, 2 homeless cousins. One is still homeless and running around the streets of Los Angeles. The other cousin, I believe, has passed. We have not heard from him. And my heart goes out to them because they're family members. But when you really think about how many families are on the cusp of being homeless, Our Family Services is there to help in that process. It is so important for our community to have stable families, and the basis of that stability is a home for all members of the family. So in the past 7 years, I have served on the board, and I am grateful for my years of experience in leadership through my professional life and my experience with other nonprofits, that I have been able to contribute to Our Family Services Board of Directors. I served as governance chair, then moved on to vice chair, and now my last stint is chair, and I have thoroughly enjoyed that. I will continue to support Our Family Services after my term ends in June. I do want to thank 3 amazing women. Patty Caldwell, I'm going to get emotional, who recruited me to the board. Just a phenomenal CEO. And then I had the pleasure of working all 6, almost 7 years with Beth Morrison. And I commend her for her leadership and for all that she taught me in terms of how to be an effective board member. And as I exit, I had the distinct pleasure of hiring the new CEO, or being part of that hiring process. And I am very excited for Jamie Snyder's leadership and her energy and passion that she'll move forward in strengthening and expanding and making our family services a better nonprofit, and a nonprofit that will make its mark on how best to serve homeless families and children. So, before I retired, I made a commitment to publish my first book. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, because I want to end this video with a couple of pieces that I wrote that I think will give you food for thought. But before I do that, I want to share that during the 7 years as a board member, in addition to serving on the committees that I mentioned, one of the areas that I have a very strong commitment to and a passionate for is IDEA, inclusion, equity, diversity, and access. All during the years I've been on the board, I have worked to further the agenda for the board and the organization on IDEA. That meant bringing in people who could help us discuss and determine how best to approach that. We brought in consultants, we had strategic planning sessions, we had input from staff, from the senior leadership team, from the board. And I'm happy to say that we have made a lot of progress. We have an initial strategic plan. We have begun intensive training for all members of the staff, upcoming training for the board. This work is very important because we work in a diverse society. We serve the diverse community, and we must understand all of the nuances that come with regards to communicating effectively with people from other cultures, who speak other languages, who understand the world differently from us, and to engage in that camaraderie and building community and supporting our community in the way they want to be heard. So that work is important to me. I love this type of work. I've done it my whole career, and I continue to do that. So let me fast forward to what comes next, and that is my writing. I am a published author. In 2019, I received the Best First Book Award from the International Latino Book Program. It is a division of a nonprofit called Empowering Latino Futures, with the mission of increasing the number of Latino and Latina authors about our culture and our families. And being a writer is an opportunity to give voice to lots of things, from a spiritual standpoint, from a social justice standpoint, from a historical standpoint. And the reason I wrote my book, Dichos de mi Padre, Sayings of My Father, is that I was blessed with a grandmother and grandfather that immigrated from Chihuahua, Mexico. And my grandmother, Maria Luna Escobedo, handed down her dichos to my father and then to me. Dichos are such a part of the Latino culture around the world. It is proverbs, it is words of wisdom. And I selected 20 of my favorites in Spanish with the translation and a story that relates to it. 20 stories about family values. And the other part of the book was the history of the Escobedo family, particularly the immigration story of my great-grandparents and grandparents. So I'm very proud of that book, and I'm also proud that Tucson Unified School District is going to utilize my book in their culturally relevant pedagogy and instruction program. I'm in the process of getting that approval so that they can purchase my book for middle school for the coming academic year. So I'm very blessed to have had a lot of mentors, good writing teachers that helped me with this book. So what I want to leave you with, in addition to thanking the employees of our family services. They are an amazingly dedicated staff, and I am so blessed to have gotten to know them and the wonderful work that they do, and that I know that they will continue. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of poems that I wrote that will be included in my new book. That's the first thing I'm going to do after my tenure ends from serving on the board. And I hope you will hear from me again regarding this work. I'm not going anywhere. I will continue to support our family services and support Jamie and her efforts, especially with IDEA, because that is an ongoing passion of mine. So I'm going to share those two poems with you now. The first one is called Dragonfly Spirit Guide. Dragonfly Spirit Guide, send renewed hope to struggling families and chaotic nations. Spread your iridescent wings over mankind and allow your positive energy to flow through us. Sprinkle your healing presence over us. Lift us up. Give us strength. Your delicate nature enlightens all who cross your path. Dragonfly Spirit Guide, bring us resilience and peace. The second one is very timely given what is happening in Ukraine. And I know that your heart and mine goes out to the people of Ukraine who are suffering greatly. Pray for Ukraine. Ukraine, an emerging democracy, a country that stands for freedom and economic strength, a country rich in history, cultural traditions, and spiritual might, now besieged by bombings, airstrikes, destruction, a cruel invasion by President Putin, buildings, hospitals, schools turned into rubble, mothers and children leaving their homeland in droves, the world's newest refugees creating a humanitarian crisis, the loss of precious lives, dedicated soldiers, citizens young and old, rips your heart. Fathers, sons, and brothers staying to fight an oppressor. And for what? So that a dictator and cold-hearted tyrant can subsume Ukraine into Mother Russia? This unjustified invasion must not continue. It must not disrupt the world order or emerge into World War III. Pray for Ukraine, for the healing of its citizens and its damaged lands. Pray for Ukraine, for its democracy to remain steadfast. Pray for Ukraine. Future generations deserve to live in peace and harmony. Pray for Ukraine's President Zelensky. He is a symbol of the hope, resolve, and strength we all need in this moment.
My name is Jamie Snyder, and I'm the CEO of Our Family Services. And I am so excited to welcome you to our event today. We are going to be featuring the Center, which is a program that is near and dear to my heart. They offer amazing trainings and opportunities to engage in community dialogue. Some of their trainings focus on nonviolent communication, on conflict and bias. It's really a tremendous opportunity to expand your own understanding of topics and to learn how to communicate with others in a way that is healthy and strong and strengthens community. Today you'll also learn more about the IDEA work that we've undertaken as an organization. That work specifically focuses on inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And it's something that we've been on a journey together as an organization for the last 2 years or so. We've sought help from the community and from consultants to ensure that not just the work we're doing is reflective of our values and inclusion, diversity, and equity, but also that throughout the organization we're implementing these principles. So as an employer, we want to be an idea-oriented employer. We want to have a work environment that welcomes and celebrates everyone and recognizes people on their journey. And so that's not just in client service provision, but that's within our organization. That's the work culture that we have here. And that's also the messaging that we're bringing into the community. And we would invite the community to join us on this journey and to learn a little bit more about the IDEA work that we've been doing, and we're so excited to share it with you today.
So, okay, and now on to our keynote speakers. We have Vanna D. Lewis and Jasmine Chan. And one of the things that we'd like to let you know a little bit about who our keynote speakers are for this wonderful event. We have Vanna D. Lewis, who is a native Tucsonan from the Tohono O'odham Nation, an abstract artist and the creator of the Worthy movement, #Worthy. Worthy stands for Working on Respecting the Human You. We also have Jasmine Chan, who was born and raised in Tucson and is the second daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong. She practiced as a mechanical engineer for a few years before pivoting to public service. Jasmine now works for the city of Tucson and serves as the chairperson of the Asian Pacific American Advisory Council to the University of Arizona's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Welcome, Vanna and Jasmine. Thanks so much for being here with us today. So we will just get started. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I'd really like for us to engage with one another and tell us why you feel this work is so important. So if you can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do in community and how you're connected to Our Family Services. So we'll start with Vanna.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? Okay, sweet. Thank you. My name is Vanna Lewis. I am a native Tucsonan from the Donna O'odham Nation. Tucson is occupied O'odham land. My ancestors were the original caretakers of this part of the world, the hemisphere in the Southwest. And I feel very privileged to be able to be here, to be doing this work. I'm an artist in the community. I vary in mediums. My art originally started as an abstract artist where I used art as therapy as a survivor of attempted suicide as a teenager. And then I just pursued it and then because my work was worthy that people took notice, and I got a scholarship to the University of Arizona under the College of Fine Arts. I got in a life-changing car accident back in 2013. A young kid was texting and driving, and I lost everything. I had a concussion and I ended up homeless. I lost my job, but the universe spoke to me and told me that no matter what happens in life, that I have worth and value and that my existence is proof. And that's how the Worthy message was born. And I started to combine me as an artist and that message together to start a global art installation, creating a conversation about self-worth and reclaiming that for yourself. So that's been my work for the last few years, and just integrating that or intersecting that within the community with youth. I also speak on behalf of NAMI, which is a National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I also work closely with the Center of Community, Community Dialogue, and creating conversations, safe conversations. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and just share, and I'm really humbled and I feel very privileged to have all this beautiful wisdom in the room to be also shared and empowering each other. So thank you. I'm really thankful to be here.
Thank you, Vanna. All right, Jasmine, let's have you introduce yourself and how you're connected to the center at OFS.
Sure. Thank you, Joanna, and thank you, Vanna, for starting us off. I am Jasmine Chan. I use pronouns she and her. As Joanna mentioned, I am employed by the City of Tucson, where I have the privilege to serve the community as the program manager for the Tucson Delivers Parks and Connections program. But aside from work life, I am also connected through the Center for Community Dialogue and Training as a volunteer mediator, and also as a volunteer dialogue circle facilitator, and just being engaged with the rest of the mediation group, thinking through what's changing and what's new in our environments, what conversations need to be had, and how do we carry those out in a place that is safe for any and all individuals who might be interested in joining us. In addition to that, I am the chairperson for the Asian Pacific American Advisory Council to the University of Arizona's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And in that capacity, I work closely with the senior leadership and other staff members to help them understand what is the environment and what is the community that people who are Asian American, Pacific Islander experience outside of campus, and help bring that lens of what's needed as our students, faculty, and staff who are Asian American or Pacific Islander are coming onto campus. What might they be coming from? What might they be leaving campus to? And helping to inform what policies and strategies might exist to help support their success on the university's campus.
Great. Thank you, Jasmine. Well, I want to thank you both for the wonderful work that you're doing in community, and certainly for how you support our family services and the larger community to have these important and necessary, conversations. So, moving that conversation forward between the three of us, I'd really like for us to talk about, what comes to your mind, when you think about the words or when you hear the words inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. And sharing an example of what that looks like for you and what that means to you when you hear those words, or how you hear of those words being put into action. So we have about 7 minutes total for this round, and so please feel free, the two of you, to jump in. That particular question, I know it's quite a bit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it into the chat as well, so you have access to that. And there we go. So what comes to your mind when you hear the words inclusion, diversity, equity, and access? And can you share an example? And so whoever'd like to speak, or whoever this speaks to, whoever'd like to speak first, I invite you to do so.
Jana, you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Me? All right. So what comes to mind immediately when I hear inclusion, diversity, equity, and access is that all of these are an imperative and are critically important for creating and building what, to me at least, is the American promise. So when I say that, I'm kind of thinking through this lens where, as like someone who works in local government, thinking about what have we done as a government entity that has really worked against including all members of our community in conversation, in decisions, in building what is impactful for who a government is supposed to serve. So really, for me, part of how I see at least my role in the local government space is to push on what we've done, acknowledge that what we've done has been harmful, and to understand what comes from there, right? Like, what can we do next? How can we step forward next with our whole community, right? Not just some people we've decided are more deserving of services than others. And that means investing in areas that have not been invested in areas that have been deliberately excluded, and doing so in a way that is community driven and community supported and comes from a place where we as a government are doing this to pour into the people who live here, as opposed to what we've done in both, long ago and recent histories of really just extracting information from our community. So a lot of it to me is how do we truly build together, and how we can best move that forward as a place that is driven first with love, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Jasmine. Vanna, would you like to share with us?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So I'm gonna look at the chat while I'm talking. When you hear the words inclusion, diversity, and equality, access. So I'm just gonna go word by word. Inclusion to me, it's a word where I've struggled with my whole life because I never felt included. I never felt the inclusion. I was always kind of the outsider, and also being Autumn, and also there's colorism within your own people and your tribe. I'm a lighter complected, so inclusion and how that plays a role in my life personally has been really challenging. So only child, not having a lot of like social skills when it comes to interacting with folks. So I always felt excluded. I remember being on the playground and not like excluded, but not included either. So inclusion for me, like I can't even remember a place where I felt like that word was really relevant in my life. But I remember on the playground being like hiding in a bush, so like there's a lot of trauma behind that word for me personally. But as I've grown and working in the community and coming to the spaces, I advocate for that inclusion because I know what it feels like firsthand. I know what it means to have to fight those quote unquote demons, those thoughts, those challenges mentally and internally, and how they play a role into your work now. And just so for me, it's really important that I reach a community, or at least give that insight of having the access for everybody to get what I'm doing or what I'm sharing in the community. And every place that I go, whether the hashtag worthy movement, NAMI, COPA, the community, the Center of Community Dialogue, always talked about to make sure that everyone has access to have that inclusion in the space that we're creating. When I hear of diversity, I think of Tucson right away, and how different this community is, and how there's people from everywhere. You really don't meet a lot of people when they say, hey, you're from Tucson. You're like, everyone says somewhere else. So it's nice to know like that we are like grounded in that area as a community already, and as like in our environment already, very diverse, with every like people, different cultures here, people that are transplants here. And so I feel like there's a lot of diversity here, but I also feel like that I'm not sure that I'm getting my work personally exposed to the diversity in the community, or making sure that the diverse community has access again in the inclusion equality. I when it comes to equality, for me, I feel like it's a world that I'm still trying to create and have access to myself, because I as a person of color, even though I sometimes feel like, what is a person of color? But for me, where indigenous, I am like my pronouns are they them, but I have a passing privilege of being a woman. So like equality hasn't always come easy on those notes. Being indigenous, being a cisgendered woman at birth, and then also understanding how that shows up in the workplace, how that shows up in schools, and how it's not always equal, but you don't really know what's going on until like now. Now I know that things are rigged. I know things are not set in equality. And for me, that's the world that I'm really trying to create, where I mean, when I say that, I even have trouble kind of giving words and understanding to it, because it's something I'm not used to. I don't see, I'm not sure I'm even practicing it. What is that? Like, I'm just gonna be real and be honest with you. Like, what is equality access? What is all of that? And all of that, how it intersects, and how in our work that that's what I'm trying to do, is build those fundamentals within the community, and those are it: the inclusion, the equality, and the diversity here in Tucson. So I hope that answers. I know that it's a very meaty question. So thank you.
It's a big topic, and I want to thank you, Vanna, for the two of you, you and Jasmine, to be able to share. A lot of times, when you think about those words, it obviously elicits feelings, action, or inaction, and one of the things that our family services, and the Center for Community Dialogue and Training is committed to is ensuring that equity happens, that you're thinking about the systems and how you approach the work that we're doing, being able to have the richness of the diverse experiences, and accessibility, that anyone can participate in programs and services, and being included in the table, being included in a dialogue, having your voice be heard, and that way people have true empowerment and recognition. So thank you for the two of you. I appreciate you being able to share in this space with us. The next question that I have for you is, when you think about that piece, when you think about inclusion, diversity, equity, and access issues within our community, how does the center help to address those circumstances and issues that arise amongst people within our community? And I invite anyone, whoever this speaks to first, to share.
I think, well, one thought that came up while Vanna was sharing for the previous question was that none of this work happens by accident. Right? We don't create inclusive spaces by like happenstance. It takes a lot of deliberate thought and a lot of effort to understand what does safety feel like to each person who might come, so that then when they arrive, they feel this is the space that was built to include them.
Mhm.
And same with diversity, right? You don't happen to have a diverse community in Tucson just by mistake or by things happening, right? A lot of it is very deliberate actions that have been taken to help resettle folks who are refugees or people who've gotten jobs, who've come here from local employers, all of that kind of process coming together. And so when I think about what the center does, to me, a lot of it is hosting and having and inviting people into a conversation space and being very deliberate upfront in saying, this is what the purpose of us coming together is. These are the rules of which we all, by being here and being a part of this conversation, are agreeing to, so that then everyone here feels they have the benefit and the privilege to be able to share openly in their thoughts. And this, to me, like, this is like a first step in all of this work that we do in the space of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, is how do you start by creating that space that people will want to come to and will want to share openly in. And that's really, for me, what the center has taught me through my volunteer experience is, what do I think through when I'm thinking about the spaces that I'm in or spaces that I'm trying to create, and how do I make sure that that's something that feels like it can be productive for a multitude of different types of people, no matter their lived experience, can come and feel listened to and acknowledged in their own experience and their own and in their own knowledge.
Thanks, Jasmine. Benna, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so you know, some of you know me, some of you don't, but I always like to just keep it real. But I have worked with the center for a very long time, in the sense where, like, there was, before you came along, Joanna, and other management. And the center's come a long way, because I've been trained, you know, and I've learned how to do facilitation, mediation, and I've established really great friendships with the center and previous staff. But I was actually very humbled and taken back that I was approached by the center and embraced by the center, me personally, and the work that I've done, the work that I'm doing, because I know that previously there's been folks that have presented, and they're, like, to me, you know, they're very creditable, they're very well presenting, they are, you know, they have all this great you know, sophistication that they bring to the center, that I felt that I was, like, very professional. And for me, as an artist, I feel like professionalism is not, like, I can be professional in how I talk, but I'm also very different too. So when the center approached me and they asked me to be involved and to share my work and to start conversations, immediately I thought, wow, that's, like, powerful, because I don't fit the kind of, like, for me, I've always been intimidated by the corporate world. I'm not sure the center is necessarily corporate, but we meet in a meeting room, you know, the kind of things, how it's oriented and stuff like that, can be very intimidating. And for me, coming into the space and being so embraced without any judgment, without any, like, just, you know, and just embrace it, really, that's the answer right there. Like, for them to want to have me included in the diversity that I bring, and the equity, you know, and having access to the community in a different way. I feel like that's, the center has spoken loudly by asking me, as me, Vanna, an artist, and then also a community member as an autumn, and then the work I do, right? Like, all of that, I feel like, speaks volumes to that question, that the center is opened up and even matured and gotten, like, another footing with the newness that has come over the last few years. And I hope that answers the question, because what I'm trying to say is that, because I'm involved, they've opened up the diversity and inclusion straight up. And now other people will have access to this empowering work because they opened it up.
Thank you, Vanna. And I feel like that's really important for us to be able to acknowledge, the way that we want to be in community is of community, by community, and knowing that we can make an impact, to allow for the difficult conversations to be had, for communication, really being able to create transformation, right? And I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but that is our tagline, that together we can have the necessary conversations and really communicate in a way where people seek clarity and understanding, and you see your way through any kind of conflict that might come your way. So and the partnerships are really important for us to be able to have in community, because we can't do this work without people like yourselves. So thank you. All right, so we have our last question, and it is, what is one thing that you would like people to know about the center and its impact on people, community? What's one thing for everyone in the room right now watching? What's one thing that you'd like people to know about the center and its impact?
I like to let people know that the center is worthy of people's time, and the education and the training and any opportunities of learning is worth the time, the energy, the price, if it's called for, and that the people working at the center, not only me knowing them personally, but knowing that they have hearts of service, of hearts of wanting to give and see the quality of our community continue to be at a great quality and at even better quality for our future. And that how, you don't think of it like this all the time, but we always kind of minimize our self-care. But when we think about self-care in a lot of different ways, it's easy to forget how self-care is part of our community. And so when the center has opportunities to care in a way that we can care for ourselves, because I've been in the center where they've had to do a mediation with neighbors, that's self-care. You want to live in a peaceful community. And to me, that's very empowering, how you take care of yourself, in return how we take care of our community. So what I like to think about the center is that it's a hospital in a sense, and that you can get taken care of there. And also it's like a center of empowerment, so you can find strength there. Yeah.
Thanks, Vanna.
I would just add that the center for me, has been a place that has modeled on the one hand, knowing very much how to do things, and then also knowing how to continue puzzling over how do we do this better, how do we improve ourselves in this process, right? And so it's been a place that has really demonstrated a curiosity about the tasks that people at the center are I consider experts in, and yet they're still like, oh, what does this mean? How does this new piece of information fit into how we approach a mediation or how we approach a dialogue facilitation? And that has kind of opened the door more for creating those positive learning environments where you can gather groups of people and you can say, hey, here's the thing I'm puzzling over, let's talk about it. And that, to me, just, there are innumerable ripple effects, right? The people who sit in that conversation then think to themselves after the conversation, oh, so that's a way to approach that conversation, or a way to problem solve, or to come together in community, and then bring that to other groups that they're a part of, or their workplace, or what may it be, to then say, hey, let's try something new. I learned something, let's try something new. So I would say, I don't know if you can measure the fullness of the impact of the center. I just know for me personally, it's taught me a lot about thinking very deliberately about how I show up and what I ask for when I'm a part of a group that's designing a space for community members to come into. And I can only hope that also helps as other people I interact with continue to do that work themselves.
Thank you, Jasmine. And thank you, Van. I appreciate you both being able to share, the type of impact. And, this is, at the end of the day, I always say that we're here to learn from one another. We're here to, create, safer spaces and braver spaces for people to be able to have, rich conversation. And, you're not going in to change people's minds, right? You're going in to talk and to learn and to have perspective taking. So you both mentioned a couple of the things that we do in terms of mediation or facilitation, and I've heard you mention trainings and, other types of small or large group facilitation, those are the core programs and services. And so, that component of us being able to take what we do, learn and improve the processes, and being mindful of challenging ourselves, right? Challenging ourselves and our own biases and the experiences that we've had, both positive and negative, and really thinking about how we can make it better for the participant and better for the person who's facilitating any kind of circle or mediation. And then we also reinvest the resources that we receive, back into our organization for people who are experiencing homelessness. So I find that that is like also, not only are you getting a quality service, but you're also getting, reinvestment in community by investing in the center, right? We say by investing in the center, you're investing in keeping people housed. So that's a twofold. So thank you. All right. Well, I just want to thank you both for the time that you've taken to have this wonderful conversation with us. And I know that we're always in touch. It's wonderful to be able to see you as professionals being out in the field and, making an impact in community. But also, I want to thank you both for making an impact here with our programs, our services, because of the people that you're able to have reach to. It's needed and it's important. So thank you.
All right. Now that we've heard from our keynote speakers, Jasmine and Vanna, thank you so much. We're going to switch it on over to the Center for Community Dialogue and Training staff. So Chris and Marley, let's have you introduce yourselves.
Awesome. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Marley Rabel. I use she, her, isha pronouns, and I've been with the center for about a year and a half. And I found myself coming to this work through much of my background is working with folks who are directly impacted by the criminal punishment system. And I was looking for ways and initiatives that were affecting people upstream, doing work in our community that was healing and that reached people before they go down a path of reaching the justice system. And so I saw dialogue and community forums, and especially transformative mediation to be a part of this solution. So I'm a community dialogue specialist here, which means that I carry out the transformative mediations and our professional trainings, as well as our community forums and facilitation services.
Someone who still has not learned Zoom. Hi, my name is Chris Medvesic, and I've been with the center mainly in person, obviously, not quite so much on Zoom. But I started as a community mediation volunteer in 1983. I took the training back when the community mediation program was still under Family Crisis Service. In the 1990s, when we were our our town family services. I taught peer mediation and parenting skills, not only in Southern Arizona, but throughout the state. We also got a contract during that time, and I was able to design a 3-part video series on peer mediation that was used by the Arizona Department of Education. I took about a dozen years off and went back into journalism and was vice president of publications for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And then in 2016, I had a great opportunity to return to the center as a community dialogue specialist, getting to work with these 2 fine young women and also an amazing corps of volunteers doing mediation, facilitation, and training.
Thanks so much, Chris and Marley. So some of the work that we're doing with inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, this work is really made real through 2 key activities here at the center. The first one being empowerment to say what's most important and to know that it's been heard. And 2, recognition of humanity and perspective taking of others. So empowerment and recognition are the forming of 2 foundational key aspects for everything that the center does, really.
Awesome. So I see inclusion, diversity, equity, and access made real in the services provided by our mediation program. So we use a transformative model of mediation, which is a restorative approach that focuses not on the outcomes, but on ensuring that each party is able to identify what's most important to them and know that the other party has been heard and understood. And that is the basis of that empowerment and recognition that Joanna was just talking about. So just a quick example of this and what transformative mediation looks like. We had a case come to us between 2 neighbors who had noise complaints between the 2 of them. And it was 2 couples, 2 households. One of the couples was Latino and the other was mixed race. And when they first came to us, they both expressed worries about the stereotypes that the other couple had for them, that they thought that they were being stereotyped as. But once they were able to come together for their conversation and air some of these things that are really difficult to talk about, they were able to get past those stereotypes and start to talk about the things that unified them. So they saw, that they were parents and that they had young children who they, both families were very concerned about the well-being and the upbringing of their families. And so they were able to change their perspectives on each other through that conversation, through that mediation, and come to an agreement about the noise issues that they had between each other.
Thanks, Marley. There are so many amazing examples in mediation of ways in which people have completely transformed their understanding of each other. But I see inclusion, diversity, equity, and access made real in the services provided by our community forums as well. So thanks to our large, diverse, and skilled core of volunteer facilitators, the center is able to offer large group dialogue circles. And these circles allow all voices to be heard, group consensus to be fostered, and the results to go on to potentially inform public policy. We do this through structured, facilitated conversations that focus as much on listening as they do on speaking. So I'd like to give you an example of this. In the spring of 2021, the mayor ordered a 45-day halt to the voter-approved expansion of the Reed Park Zoo. And this was just days before the bulldozers were supposed to take down Barnum Hill, which was a popular Reed Park feature that was slated to become part of the zoo expansion. The center was contracted to quickly put together and conduct both a large public community forum and a separate consensus process with a group of about 20 some stakeholders who live near the park or were for the zoo or the city. So through these 2 processes, issues of economic and environmental justice were surfaced and considered. These were issues that had not come up before in the public consideration of this. The zoo, city, and neighborhood representatives on the small stakeholder group struggled with the consensus process, worked very hard through that process. And as a result of their work, there was a recommendation made, not through the consensus process, but as a direct result of that process. And a new plan was adopted by the Tucson City Council for the zoo expansion. We just recently got an update on how that zoo expansion is going. And they said that as a result of this new plan, they actually will have more space for the animal exhibits and for conservation efforts. So we were very excited and proud to be able to serve our community in this way.
Thank you so much for Chris and Marley for sharing some examples of facilitation, community mediation, and community dialogue and forums. So those are 3 of our program services, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the last one. The last one is training in communication and conflict resolution as our 4th program service. What that means is that the center provides online, in-person, and soon on-demand trainings that increase awareness of restorative practices such as intentional listening, nonviolent communication, de-escalation skills, self-reflection and self-awareness, and any ongoing practice for community mediators, facilitators, and of the like. And so those 4 program services, as you can see, we're very excited here at the center about all of the ways that our program services make IDEA real in our community. And so we're proud that our family services also supports, youth and families in experiencing homelessness. So our services contribute towards youth and families experiencing homelessness here in our community. So in all these ways and more, the center upholds our motto, which is communication creates transformation. And so with that, we want to thank all of you for joining us for our Mission Possible celebration and taking the time to learn about the IDEA work that we're undertaking here in our family services and the Center for Community Dialogue and Training. So your support and dedication to our family's mission to eliminate homelessness and strengthen community really makes Tucson a great place to live, work, and play. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Take care.